Hello, my name is Francine Houston, and this is the Artist in You. Today we supposed to had a guest, Raquel Carter, but I don't know what happened to her today. But I was in the middle of a book club. Um, One of the good people that I know, Cynthia, we had a book club on one of her books. She has a series called the Bringer of Light series. Um, I read all three of them, and she's adding a fourth book. But we were discussing this book, Claudia. I kept on referring to the first book, which is London. This is a nonfiction. No, this is a fictional series because she writes nonfiction as well. Cynthia Hatchard, but she went by a different name, Cynthia L. D. Bruce, at the bottom. Um, is basically the three books um is about seers. I know this is February, and the main thing you would think about in February is love. I mean, she has some love scenes in here, so like we had to explain how London came into this world. So she had a love scene between Claudia and Sammy, the Cynthia's, I mean London's father on in this book. But the main thing was it was about seers, and it explained how um somehow we were trying to figure out how London, the first one, how London got the gift, how she, got out of the South or whatever, which is very interesting. It started with like her having this beautiful life in New York, and just just living her life. But somehow her mother passed after her like 20th or 21st birthday, and we was trying to figure that out too. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think Lena killed her mother to bring London to Claudia. I know. I keep on thinking these people despicable, but I know these people be having alternative motives. So she was having this nice life in New York, taking classes, becoming like this big. I think it was some type of doctor she was becoming or whatever. And then something tragic happened in her life, and her mother, what she thought was her mother, passed. And then all the pieces came together, and she found it out that the lady wasn't her mother, and that she had to go back down south and to pick the pieces up. And there's this lady named Claudia that was her mother. So she's like, what in the heck is going on? And how they had all this money is because her mother like put investments in her name. So it wasn't her that just had all this money. Her best friend had all the money, and even the best friend's daughter had a whole bunch of money. But they just felt bad because it's like we feel alone. I mean, her best friend, her mom died. The lady's best friend, died. Um, so I was just trying to pick all the pieces together. Like, I think her name either was Nicole or Natalie. No, Natalie was the best friend. They called her. They had nicknames Cupcake and Cake, but I don't want to give the whole story away. I think you should read this series. It's very good. I got Lena on my I got Lena as a I can say as an ebook. I got all three of these as an ebook. I just went and bought the paperbacks because that's required the actual um for the actual book club. So, I mean, it was just very interesting. It's like I read all three of the books, like, because she did London last year. So I went out and I just didn't read London. I read London, Claudia, and London. I read all three, even though we supposed to just read this book because she had this book we had to do for the book club last year. This is the book club for this year. But I did the same thing. When we did the book club for this book, I went back and read this book. I read this one because, of course, this is for the book club. But then I went on ahead and started trying to read Lenham, and I was just like, if I read Lenham, I'm gonna get these books mixed up. So I decided to wait on reading Lenham the rest of it because I was like, I'm gonna keep on referring to Lenham, and we supposed to be talking about Claudia. But Claudia, it explained how she became Claudia. It explained how she had the gift. See, the gift was already within the family. They was just trying to manifest it in her. So she had to do all these weird rituals with her auntie, which I believe her auntie set her parents up to get killed so she could have Claudia to herself. That's why I say it's some weird stuff in this family. I believe somehow they be having these people killed off in these books just so they can have their way. So when I read that, she had to go because she lived in a nice neighborhood. Her parents loved her. She had, you know, I don't believe she had any siblings. She was the only child. She was real young when they passed, and the only living relative she had was her auntie. And I'm looking like that's kind of sad to be treated that way by your own relatives. You know what I'm saying? Like you read stories about how something happened to a parent, and then another relative had to take over, but you expect them, to be nice to you and treat you nice, even though this is a fictional book. I mean, this stuff happened in real life all the time, and then you have to take them in. You wouldn't want to be mistreated, like you already lost your parent, but then you getting mistreated by your other relative. You be like, man, I'd rather go to a foster home getting treated like that. So it's like many a times in this book, Claudia tried to run away. She didn't get fired, barely down the street. She ended up finding the dwelling place or whatever. But long story short is that they help Claudia develop this gift that she had, that she was a seer. London was a seer, but it's like God was directing her when something bad happens. Like somebody has an accident, somebody dies. It's like the Lord was speaking to her and telling her something was gonna happen. But with Claudia, people came to her with problems. Like I can't get married. Can you help me get married? And she was doing all this voodoo stuff to get them what they wanted, or somebody wasn't being faithful. Give me they sock. You be looking at them like this sound like some weird wish voodoo stuff. So it's like she was using her gift, but the way she was using it is the way that her ancestors and her auntie and all them taught them. So it's like she was using her gift for money, while London was using her gift to like warn people and stuff like that. So it was really strange. I mean, this book, I have never read any book like this in my whole entire life. So that's what grabbed me to it. It's like once I started reading it, I could not put it down, which is a good thing because we trying to get people to have, readers like that to read these books and not want to put them down so they can stay engaged to it. So you basically have a person hooked to reading your books. And when they get hooked to reading your books, every time a book come out, they gonna want to read it. So I'm waiting for the fourth book. The fourth book, see, they did London. London was the daughter. They did Claudia. Claudia was the mama. They did Lena. Lena lived in the house with Hecate, which was her auntie. So now they doing Sammy, and I had the part of me like I wonder if Hecate gonna have her own story. But to tell you the truth, I don't want to hear Hecate's story because she just seemed like she was evil from the beginning. Like I don't know who did what to this lady, but she just seemed like she was evil. Like I don't know if somebody forced her to be like that, or this is she just. It's like part of her story was mixed in to London, and no, it was mixed into Claudia and to Lennon. So we already kind of know her story. It's just that she forced this lifestyle on other innocent people. Like when I read Lena, I was like, this is so sad how this girl was with her family and how the mother really just wanted to be loved by the father. And I'm looking like, you should just find somebody else. Don't do this to this girl. Gave her off to this lady who was not even her kinfolk, gave her to the auntie, Claudia's auntie, and she like tormented her every day. I thought she was gonna show her how to do that to see her stuff. But she just threw her in that position. And what I didn't know is that actually I think her family was into that stuff too, because when you read the end of Lena, it's basically saying it's payday, excuse me. That it's payday now. And that they was gonna take over basically what the auntie and Claudia was doing. So it's like all my suspicions came about when I believe Lena set up Claudia to die. Like it was just crazy. I'm like throughout this whole book is like people setting up people to do horrible things to them. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is just too much. But it's like I was reading, I'm like, okay, I'm not getting attached to these characters because it's not real, but it seems so real, it's ridiculous. And I believe fictional books pull from somewhere. Like you just not gonna make up something off the clear blue sky. You gonna figure out where this stuff coming from, even if it came from your own family. Like she could have been talking about is an auntie and her family that's kind of off and mean. So I kind of made her a character. You know what I'm saying? Like, for example, I wrote this story called Deja Vu. And the main character, I made the story after, well, parts of the character, not all of it, because I made the character work in an advertising agency. And I used to be a graphic designer. I still am, but I just work for myself. I'm a freelancer. But I made the main character break up, have a breakup with somebody, not a marriage, just a breakup. They were just, boyfriend, girlfriend, break up with her boyfriend, and because her boyfriend was with another woman. And that technically was about my sister. My sister was in a relationship. I'm not gonna say no names because I have a lot of sisters, but you probably gonna figure it out. And she was gonna, they was gonna go the long haul, but she found out through a text message that this man had another woman, like they was together and everything. So she broke up with him. But my sister didn't sit there and eat chunky monkey ice cream. She was just chilling. Like my sister don't let like this stuff get to her. And when I say that them two people was doing everything together, I mean they went what's that? They went camping together. They went to another state together. They gardened together. Like they was doing everything together. I think they was together for like I think 2 years or so. See, I didn't put that all in my story. I just put the gist of the thing in my story that she was with this guy. This guy left her for another woman. Basically, she just basically let the guy leave her for another woman. She was just like, if you gonna be with her, then you just be with her. I'm about to go about my business. And then I added um I added a male best friend, and that was from True Life too. Her tap my God, I won't say her name, but she used to have she used to have a male best friend. God rest his soul, he's not alive anymore. But when we were little, she used to have a male best friend. So I added him to the story. And I think it was, to me, I felt like it was a love triangle. So that's where some of this stuff came from. So when let people read the story, they get interested, like, oh my God, I didn't know the best friend and her liked each other and stuff. So it was based off of real life, even though, nothing came about of it. It was, some of this stuff was based off real life. So I'm not saying, because I left the book club meeting very early, so I wasn't able to find out like where you get this inspiration from. Like, who is these characters? Did you get these inspiration from I was wondering if she just got it from something that happened to her in real life. You know what I'm saying? So these other characters, I believe, because I believe she said it to me. She said, I had somebody in my life and she had to die. Like this, the aunt had to die because she was doing stuff. And if you read the book, because I'm back to talking about London and her series. If you read the book, you will find out that auntie was no good. Like she was really out for nobody's good. Like she did good in the book. She helped people and stuff like that. But the way she helped that lady and made her daughter live with her for the rest of her life, that wasn't helping. She was just like, if you bring that child to me, your husband gonna love you. And I was like, why would she sacrifice for her own child? Like that's just sick. I would just rather be with somebody else and do all of that. But this lady wanted her husband to love her so bad. She gave up her daughter to this crazy. I call her a witch, but she was a seer. But she wasn't right. She wasn't right. That's why I was like, read the books, read these books. I'm telling you, they are very good. Read them, because I was just like, oh my God, where did she get it from? And a lot of people referred these stories, Claudia being similar to the Color Purple. I know everybody watched the Color Purple. I watched the original. I haven't read the book, and I have to see the music. I have to see the music because I know the musical is different than the actual movie. So, um, excuse me. I believe that could help. Now, her fourth book, I only heard a little bit of the fourth book. It's called Sammy, and it's explaining. I no, I heard bits and pieces of Sammy. It's talking about how he came about. Like Sammy somehow is not down south no more because he ended up leaving. He ended up leaving the south to go. I think he went off to school, but it shows that Sammy was a little different. Even in the book Claudia, he was a little different um than the regular people in the South. Like his mind was just so expanded. You wouldn't think he lived in the South. So actually London probably ran into to her father, didn't know it because he was actually ended up being a teacher at a university, because the way she made Claudia seemed like a country girl that with no education, because her poor auntie would not let her go to school. How's she gonna be educated? She didn't really even know that much. She just knew what she was taught. Like I felt like she knew what she was taught, and she did what she could to survive. Like how she gonna go out and get a regular job and she ain't got no basic skills? She know how to cook and she know how to clean. She probably know how to do hair, but she probably didn't know like administrative tasks or anything because she wasn't even educated. So I feel that London took after her father because they allowed her to get an education, and then she could aspire for more. Even though these are fake characters, I mean, we live in a world where a lot of people wasn't getting education. So I don't know where she set this off to, but it was just very interesting that you could tell that the characters was totally opposite each other. Like Sammy was trying to aspire to be something. He was smart and stuff. But it's just the way that it all went down that made him like a bad person. So when I she read bits and pieces of the last book, it was showing it was showing how Sammy was just a human being, but he was just acquiring for more out of life. It's just that I felt like he shouldn't have dragged Cynthia, not Cynthia, he shouldn't drag Claudia through all of this stuff. She didn't deserve all of that. But anyway, I'm telling you bits and pieces of it. You're probably like, what is she talking about? But I suggest you read the book. And I read these books. This is the twice. Like this is I'm reading Linda again due to the fact that she's having Sammy come out, and I don't know when Sammy's coming out. Because, like I said, I wasn't on there long enough to find out. I'm hoping and praying that it's soon. So, my thing is now is that I'm learning to read from other people and other fictional books, so I would know how to really do mine. Because, like I said, I let somebody that I know read my book, and they basically told me, deja vu. They basically told me I needed to finish um how it ended because I made it end with her coworker having a date finally, because she was the single one throughout the whole book, and she was watching her other coworker go on all these dates and do this and do that. And she wasn't acting jealous. She was acting a bit desperate, like, oh my god, you finally got somebody. I don't got nobody. Blah 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 blah. So at the end, I kind of made her match up with somebody else. But it's like I didn't really tell the ending of the book. I just kind of let it end with them actually going on a date. I didn't like explain anything else. So she just felt like the story was missing something. So I got to go back and change it. But the other things that I made seem realistic was the fact that she had a job in like creative field. Even though technically I'm in a creative field, but I'm not in the office. I just work and I just make clothes every day. So that's not that type of creative stuff. I'm in manufacturing, apparel manufacturing, and it's like that's like in the Midwest. It's like a big thing. Like GM, Chrysler, Ford, they all here, but now they're starting to have more apparel manufacturers in even places like Michigan. Like we have one in Lansing, we have one in Flint. I think they have one in Millet, and then there's other companies that have the same thing. And I don't know if they make the same or even more than that I make. But I tried to make it seem like the character in Deja Vu had like a regular life, except in the book Deja Vu, she met her man through her dreams. I didn't try to make the lady a seer. I didn't even know about London when I wrote this. I just wrote it based off of somebody I knew had a dream that they got married. I mean, they didn't get married. They just had this dream. So that's basically where the dream started coming from. I was like, I should just make my main character feel like she had got married, like she went to her own wedding. I just did weird stuff like that, and they like, what in the world? And I'm like, well, I got this idea because somebody told me that's what they dreamed. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it came from bits and pieces of just real life. Everything else was like placed together. But I also made one of the characters be like a nosy coworker. And I think 9 times out of 10, everybody had that one coworker that's just a bit too nosy. Come on now. It may not be your day job, it may be your night job. It may be something, somewhere, something you doing. And it's that one nosy person. You be like, if you don't just get out my business. So I wrote a character like that because at my day job, I mean, she's a lot older. This lady is in her 60s. And I kid you not, she is nosy. It's like she'll come out of nowhere and she just seem all nice. Hi, how you doing? And then she be like, "Well, where's so and so at? And why she not here? Or what's she doing? Where's she at now?" And I'm looking like, "You a bit nosy. If she didn't tell you, I shouldn't tell you." Because usually I ask because a lot of my coworkers sometimes they don't feel well. They don't be there all the time. So I'm just like, if she's saying this out of concern, I tell her. But if I don't know, I'm not gonna tell her either. Because after a while, my other coworker felt offended. She was like, she was just a bit too nosy. Why she need to know my every move? Like, this is ridiculous. And it was just like, it just made me feel like, oh my God, I got to make this into a character. Why is this lady so nosy? So I'm like, it was real life. So I didn't make the character like be that nosy. I made her be nosy in a certain area, and that was the lady's love life. The lady was becoming nosy, and I was like, the lady's like, "Why you so nosy?" She like, "Well, I'm single. I'm seeing you doing all this stuff." And she was like, "I just met him like 2 months ago." And she was just like, "Uh-uh." So I made her nosy in that note, but it's actually people out in the real world that's extremely nosy. It is. They exist. You may not seen them, but I have seen them. So that's why I made them that way. But I digress. I still have to work on that story, and I do plan on publishing it one day, but I like to read other people's books, um, and especially her nonfiction, her fiction. I keep on saying I read her nonfiction too, but it's another book that I have by her. It's called The Others, and it's like she's explaining. She made like words like love and like um protection. She made them be people, like, she personified them, and it's like, it was really different that she made them personify, and it's like, it made sense because then she just made the characters be what they mean. If the person was love, that was just being loving. If the person was protection or security, they was just being security. They was just being protection. So I have to finish reading that one because it's a good book. It's a good book, but I hate when I actually read really good books all the time, and I just run out of time to read them. But with this one and this one, I made time. It's like if I'm bored and don't have nothing to do, or I'm at work and I don't have nothing to do, that's why I put it on my Kindle. I put it on my phone. I just sit there and I just read the book. Now I need to have that same discipline for all these other books I'm trying to read. Because with this one, I went right back through it. Like I took a minute and I acted like I never read this book before. And then the same with this one. Cause it's like when you reread a book, you see clues you didn't see before. Like when I was explaining about London, I read that book. This is the second time I read it, and I was like, I believe because Linda said, and Claudia, she said, I brung London to you. So I'm like, if she brung London to her, she's got she set up her mother for being killed. Her mother was just minding her business, driving to work. She decided to go early. Somehow a semi truck came and ran her over. I don't believe that is by circumstances. That's not by accident. I believe Lennon set that thing up. I believe so. Because How else she gonna bring her to her? She had to remove somebody important from her life for her to try to put the pieces together. If she removed the mother, of course she gonna be like, well, if she not my mother, who it is? Because after the mother died, she was explaining that she wasn't her mother, and she hoped you go find her mother. So I believe Lennon removed her from the story. And it took me a minute to realize that. Just like it took me a minute to realize I read Claudia that her aunt set out and killed her parents just so Claudia could come to her. I believe it happened. I believe it was a straight up setup. And she set that up so the aunt could be the only relative around her, and she had to do what she said. See, like you get different clues throughout this. And just like when I let other people read my books, they was getting different clues without, throughout the books throughout the stories that I wrote. Whether they be fiction or nonfiction, they was getting clues. So right now, um, I can say what I'm working on. I am working in an anthology called it's about self-care, and my chapter is self-care in a crisis. And I'm also trying to find a conclusion to Seeking You Shall Find, which is like, it's a journal entry book. I started it last year, and I'm just telling you bit by bit of how my whole year went being on 90 milligrams of steroids, and how I was on steroids from December 31st, 2022, all the way to August 19th, 2023. So I was on it for that long, even though that seemed like a short period of time. Like my body went through a lot of changes. So I was just like writing down exactly what I went through throughout that whole thing. But it's been hard for me to find an ending because I've been finding other stuff that's been going on with me when I go to a naturopathic doctor. So I'm hoping by the end of this month that I can finish it, because it just seemed like every time I go to my naturopathic doctor, she has a new discovery for me. I'm like, okay, that may have to just be another book because this thing has to end. It's already just gonna make it a year long of what I went through, but it ended up spilling into this year because I kept on finding other stuff that was going on with me. And so, the self care in a crisis, she just the lady over it, the visionary over it, Akia Roberts, who have came on the show. She gave me the subject, self-care in a crisis. And I was like stumped for a minute, like, what can I write about? But then I started facing challenges this year about how I had to fight for just having health care. Just normal health care. Like I ended up losing my Medicare and I ended up keeping my Medicaid, but I was just fighting just to go to the doctor, trying to just, fight to just have medication. Like I went to the foot clinic. I was like, I hope they take just straight Medicaid right now because I really need to go see this foot clinic. They took it. I had no problems. I just, thought that I was gonna just keep on going through all of this. And then how I had a self-care crisis concerning my hair because lupus can take your hair out. It's just that simple. You don't even have to be taking medication. You can just be sitting here and you just get a little bald spot. And you can manage the little bald spots. They'll grow back. But if you take a medication on top of that and you have a bald spot, it's just gonna get worse. Like, and I started telling you about how I one time I just didn't have no edges. When I they took my took something out, the edges was gone. Like it was just like bald hair. You just saw hair right here, but everything else was bald. And I was just like, oh my God, how am I gonna deal with this? So thank God for hair, for cosmetologists, hairdressers, you know, they saved my life pretty much. So that was another example of like a self care in a crisis. And even something simple as just having like bad hangnails, bad toenails, just little stuff you wouldn't consider a crisis. But to me, not having health care or health insurance was a crisis to me. Dealing with hair stuff sometimes could be a crisis to me. Like and just how to deal with it. So I'm just hoping to get Akia or the rest of the crew back on here before I think we publish either it's sometime in the spring we publish. So I can try to get her back on here or just have the book and just discuss the book because they're talking about every aspect of self-care, physical self-care, mental self-care, emotional self-care. I'm doing self-care in a crisis. And hopefully I'm really hoping, because I got other books to write, that I'll be done with Seeking You Shall Find. But again, next week I plan on having Patricia and Keith West to be on the show. If not, then I'll probably be on here talking about something else or another book that I have read. So again, thank you for coming on, and I'll see you next week for the artist in you. Bye.